Hare Jayo Gopi Janna Vallabha Jayo Giri Varadhari Jayo Giri Varadhari Shodanandana Brajajana Ranjanam Shodanandana Brajajana Ranjanam Munatira Vannacharim Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Bihari Jayo Gopi Janna Vallabha Jayo Giri Varadhari Jayo Giri Varadhari Shodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Shodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Munatira Vannacharim Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Radha Madhava Ashtaka Srimad Mahaprabhu ki, Srimad Bhagavan ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. This morning we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 6, Conversation between Narada and Vyasadeva, Sloka 35. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yami Dibir Yoga Patai Kamaloba Hato Muhu Mukunda Sevaya Yadvat Tata Madana Shamyate Yami Dibir Yoga Patai Kamaloba Hato Muhu Mukunda Sevaya Yadvat Tata Madana Shamyate. Please chant. Tata Madana Shamyate. Sevaya Tamadana Shamyati. Divir Yoga Patai Kunda Sevaya Yadvat Matajis. Sevaya Yadvat Yama Hadibhi. By the process of practicing self-restraint. Yoga Patai. by the system of yoga, mystic bodily power to attain the godly stage. Kama, desires for sense gratification. Lobha, lust for satisfaction of the senses. Hatha, curbed. Muhu, always. Mukunda, the personality of Godhead. Sevaya, by the service of. Yadvat, as it is. Tatha, like that. Atma, the soul. Adha, for all practical purposes. Na, does not. Shamyati, be satisfied. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. It is true that by practicing restraint of the senses by the yoga system, one can get relief from the disturbances of desire and lust. But this is not sufficient to give satisfaction to the soul, for this satisfaction is derived from devotional service to the personality of Godhead. Purport. Yoga aims at controlling the senses. By practice of the mystic process of bodily exercise in sitting, thinking, feeling, willing, concentrating, meditating, and at last being merged into transcendence, one can control the senses. The senses are considered like venomous serpents, and the yoga system is just to control them. On the other hand, Narada Muni recommends another method for controlling the senses in the transcendental loving service of Mukunda, the personality of Godhead. By his experience, he says the devotional service to the Lord is more effective and practical than the system of artificially controlling the senses. In the service of the Lord Mukunda, the senses are transcendentally engaged. Thus, there is no chance of their being engaged in sense satisfaction. The senses want some engagement. To check them artificially is no check at all, because as soon as there is some opportunity for enjoyment, the serpent-like senses will certainly take advantage of it. There are many such instances in history, just like Vishwamitra Muni's falling a victim to the beauty of Menaka. But Thakur Haridas was allured at midnight by the well-dressed Maya, and still she could not induce that great devotee into her trap. The whole idea is that without devotional service of the Lord, neither the yoga system nor dry philosophical speculation can ever become successful. Pure devotional service of the Lord without being tinged with fruitive work, mystic yoga, or speculative philosophy is the foremost procedure to attain self-realization. Such pure devotional service is transcendental in nature, and the systems of yoga and jnana are subordinate to such a process. When the transcendental devotional service is mixed with the subordinate process, it is no longer transcendental, but is called mixed devotional service. Srila Vyasadeva, the author of Srimad Bhagavatam, will gradually develop all these different systems of transcendental realization in the text. Om Jnanatimirandasya Ghananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Ghoravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasyatya Deshatharine. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gorat Vishe Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Ghora Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Krishna. So we are at the end of this chapter 6, where Narada Muni describes his past life experience. Somehow Srimad Bhagavatam is full of these past life experiences. It helps to know what was our past, to understand our present and our acting and conditioning in the present life. So it is one success story described by the Narada Muni. We heard of the success stories in the material world, and they are different than this one. Usually the success stories in the material world are stories from rags to riches. How some boy, when he was 13, he started programming, coding, he made his first program. Then at the age of 21, he made a company, Microsoft, Facebook, this or that. And then now he's a billionaire, or more or less has half of the world under his control. So these stories of material success. And motivational speakers, they usually quote these and similar stories to inspire us. And they said, you just need a strong desire to succeed, strong willpower, and then one day you will also become like Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk or whoever. Well, is it really a success? Depends on our criteria. If you use the same criteria of success as we use for this story that I just mentioned, then this story of Narada Muni, it wouldn't be a story of success. It would be actually completely opposite. It would be a disaster story. It's a story of an orphan boy born in a low-class Shudra family, and he was only 5 years old. His mother died, and he was left without anybody and anything in this world. And he just started wandering around like a homeless beggar. From material perspective, it's a disaster story. You know? Small abandoned child without anybody in this world, with no money, with nothing. It's a complete failure from a material point of view. But from the spiritual point of view, it's a story of great success. We know that in the end, he had a darshan of the Lord. And what could be greatest success from the spiritual point of view? He saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. And then in his very next life, he attained transcendental body, spiritual body of Narada Muni, which is ever glorious and famous all over the world. So these material success stories, they're only apparently success stories. All their money and power is just not enough to free these people from fear, from anxiety, from worries. What to speak about freeing them from disease, old age, and death. A real success is to be able to give one freedom from birth, old age, disease, and death. And those who aspire for this type of success, they're called transcendentalists, as opposed to materialists. And generally, transcendentalists, they are classified into three categories: jnanis, yogis, and devotees. And in this particular shloka 35, we have comparison of yoga process and bhakti, devotional service. And it's mentioned here that yoga, it can give you relief from disturbances of desire and lust, kama and lobha. But it doesn't give satisfaction to the soul. And on the other hand, bhakti also gives satisfaction to the soul, besides freedom from disturbances of desire and lust. But what is common for both processes of yoga and devotional service is control of the senses. The only what is different is the way how the senses are controlled. In yoga, they are controlled through asana, pranayama. Control of prana leads to control of the mind and the senses, because prana and the mind are very closely interwoven. But that mechanical process of controlling the mind and the senses is not always successful, and Prabhupada mentions very often throughout his books and lectures and conversations the story of Vishwamitra Muni, how he was successful in controlling the senses in yogi trance, but then it happened that Indra sent Menaka, which was heavenly Apsara, and he became a victim of sex life. So in this way, his artificial way of controlling the senses failed. And then in contrast, Prabhupada gives the example of pure devotee, Haridas Thakur, who was victorious, not becoming a victim of Mayadevi and prostitutes. So in devotional service, senses are given different engagement instead of artificially trying to restrain and suppress them and control them. So this is the case of perfect devotee Haridas Thakur. He is not becoming victim of any sort of sense allurements. But what if devotee is not so perfect? Then there is a chance that devotee will also fall victim of sense allurements and uncontrolled senses. In Bhagavad Gita, or Krishna says in the 2nd chapter, Indriyanam hincharatam yan mano nuvidhiyate. Even one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses, tadasya harati pragyam vayur navam ivambasi, carries away one's intelligence, like wind carries away boat on the water. So just one uncontrolled sense is enough to take us away from the path of self-realization. And there are many stories again in the Srimad Bhagavatam. We heard the story of Maharaj Bharat. Only small inattention, it costed him very much in that life, that he lost all his spiritual progress temporarily, and he was born as a deer in the next life. Then in Chaitanya Charitamrita we have a story of Kala Krishnadas, who was a personal associate of Lord Chaitanya and who accompanied him on his tour to South India carrying his danda and a water pot. But somehow or other, he was allured by some gypsy Bhatahari women. Although he was a personal associate of the Lord, but he was not that accomplished as Haridas Thakur. So he fell as a victim. Of course, Lord Chaitanya, he felt responsible for his personal associates, so he went to the camp of Bhataharis and he dragged him by the hair back to his own camp. But later, when they came back to Jagannath Puri, he rejected him, just to show how dangerous it is to have unrestrained senses in the mind. So bhakti is defined as engaging senses in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We have a shloka from Narada Pancharatra, quoted in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, famous, Hrishikena Hrishikesha Sevana Bhaktir Uchate. Bhakti is defined as a service to the Lord using one's senses. And first part of that shloka is Sarvapadi Vinirmuktam Tat Paratvena Nirmalam. So that means that that service should be done unconditionally, without upadis, without any designations, and should be done tatparatvena, with the intention of pleasing the Lord, and should be also nirmalam, without any blemish, without mixture of other processes like jnana and karma. So Narada, in his previous life as the orphan boy, he engaged his senses in the service of the Lord, and as the result of this engagement, the Lord revealed himself to him. Ata Shri Krishna namadi na bhavet graham indriyai sevan mukhi jivado swam eva spuratyada. So that means that we cannot understand Lord Krishna's name, form, qualities, pastimes without blunt material senses. But when we engage the senses, starting with the tongue, sevan mukhi jivado, the Lord becomes revealed. He voluntarily agrees to reveal to himself to one who engages his senses in his service. So if we are not able to see the Lord when we sit to hear, chant, and remember Him, that means that our senses are still contaminated. Otherwise, we would be able to see just as soon as we would take our japa and start to chant, we would have a darshan of the Lord if our senses would be pure. So if that is not the case, that means our senses are not pure. And the next question is how to purify them. Sri Jiva Goswami, he helps us answer this question in his Bhakti Sandarbha. In Anucheda 256, he says, at first, I'm quoting, at first a person must hear the holy name to achieve purity of the antakarana. Antakarana is a subtle body, or sometimes translated as psychological faculty. Thereafter, when his antakarana has become pure, it is fit appearance place for the Lord's beautiful form, and as soon as the Lord's form thoroughly manifests in his heart as a result of hearing descriptions of that form, the devotee experiences revelations or spurti of Lord's qualities. As the Lord's qualities fully unfold, the defining characteristics of his associates are also exhibited. After that, when the Lord's name, form, qualities, associates have completely manifested in the bhakti's heart, the Lord's pastimes blossom in their full splendor. So this is the progression of sadhana, or sadhana krama, that Srila Jiva Goswami describes with the intention of acquainting the devotees with the sequential process involved in the Lord's appearance in their heart. So there is a process how to have Lord manifest himself in our heart. And there are stages in this process. And if we very carefully follow these stages, as scientifically explained by Srila Jiva Goswami, then the Lord will guaranteed become manifest in our heart. It's guaranteed, if we do it properly, as it is prescribed. So the first part was to hear the holy name to achieve the purity of antakarana, or the subtle body. Subtle body, it's usually called sukshma sharira or antakarana, and has different components that come from Mahatattva, and these components are chitta, ahankara, buddhi, manas, and prana. These are the components of subtle body according to Patanjali Muni in his Yoga Sutras. Chitta, it's difficult to translate in English. I don't sometimes translate it as the heart, sometimes as the mind, but it's not either of those. And then ahankara, false ego, buddhi is intelligence, manas is the mind, and prana is the life force. And Shuddha Antakarana, or pure subtle body, is the chitta. It's actually this chitta, original pure consciousness, and it's predominated by sattva. So when that chitta becomes contaminated by rajas and tamas, by the lower modes of material nature, it manifests itself as ahankara, buddhi, manas, and prana. So what are the qualities of this chitta or shuddha antakarana? That's answered by Lord Kapila in a third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 26, Sloka 22, where he explains the process of creation. He says there to his Manadeva Huti, Svachatvam avikaritvam shantatvam iti chetasa vritibhir lakshanam proktam yatapam prakriti para. Translation: after the manifestation of the Mahatattva, these features appear simultaneously. As water in its natural state before coming in contact with earth is clear, sweet, and unruffled, so the characteristic traits of pure consciousness are complete serenity, clarity, and freedom from distraction. So as the water, when it's completely pure, it's very transparent, very peaceful, very pleasant to drink. Similarly, the pure consciousness, when it's not contaminated with the lower modes of nature, has these qualities that I mentioned here. I will repeat them. Svachatvam means clarity or purity. Srila Prabhupada, in purport to this sloka, he mentions in regard to this, he says, in pure consciousness, one can perceive a slight reflection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Swami Shlovichana Chakravarti Thakur, in a commentary to this sloka, they say when the mind has this svachatvam quality, purity or clarity, then it's called Bhagavan Bimba Grahitva, ability to catch the reflection of the Lord in one's heart. Bimba is the reflection, Grahitva, to grasp, and Bhagavan is the Lord. Bhagavan Bimba Grahitva. So that means when our mind and heart are pure, when we chant, what happens? There is occasional spurti or reflection of the Lord's form that appears like flashes in our mind. And this is the natural quality of the pure mind, pure chitta. So that was svachatvam. Avikaritvam means without vikars, without transformations. It's a quality of being free from also sleepiness or distraction. So if we chant and we feel sleepy or distracted, means that our mind is not pure. It's not Shuddha, it's contaminated. We cannot chant with the pure mind and fall asleep. It's not possible. And the last quality of Chitta or Shuddha Antakarana is Shantatvam, translated as peacefulness or serenity. That means that the mind who has this quality is free from raga, dvesha, abhavinivesh, from attachments and aversions that pollute it. Like sweet water is not polluted by the foam which appears on the surface of the water. So all material attachments and aversions, they pollute the heart and the mind. And they prevent the Lord's form becoming manifested in our heart. So that's why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he stated in the very first line of Shishakshaka Cheto Darpana Marjanam, cleaning the mirror of the heart. So in order to have the Lord manifest Himself in our heart, we have to clean that mirror of the heart. If the mirror is completely dirty, you cannot see anything, you cannot see even yourself. But once the mirror becomes very clean and you stand in front of it, you'll be able to see your own image. And not only your own image, because it's a transcendental mirror, you'll be also be able to see the reflection of the Lord's personal form. So ability to purify the heart depends on several factors. It depends on one's effort, how much effort we put in cleaning. Depends on prayer and mercy in hearing and chanting of the holy name. So we have to work on it very hard. And how we will know that we cleansed our mirror of the heart sufficiently? Indication will be spurti, manifestation of the Lord in our heart while chanting. If that doesn't happen, it means it's not yet pure enough. And then no technique of visualization or remembering will help us to see the Lord's form. There's a story of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, how he would go into the Ganga and chant all day, and he wouldn't come out unless he would have a darshan of the Lord. He would see the Lord. He would reject to come out of the Ganga unless the Lord forms would manifest. But because his heart was pure, the Lord would manifest himself. And he would have a spurti. Not only spurti, not only reflection, but he would have a darshan of the Lord. So no, not having a spurti or not seeing the reflection of the Lord while chanting means one of the following. First, we are not putting enough effort in cleaning. We are doing it very half-heartedly. Sometimes we forget to clean it, sometimes we clean it a little bit, but then we don't do it very regularly or very often or very nicely, and then it becomes overnight again, covered with the dust. So it's never clean enough to see anything in that mirror. But let's say that we are putting as much effort as we can, then it simply means that we need more time. More time is needed. Nobody can clean the mirror of the heart that was dusty and dirty for so many lifetimes in one day. It takes time. But supposedly we are devotees 20, 30 years and it's still not happening. That means something else is the problem. Because we already spent a lot of time in cleaning it and still it's not clean. So then, what could be the possible cause of that? That means that we might be committing some offenses, some aparadas, and undoing all good that we achieved by hard work of cleaning it. We are offending Vaishnavas. We are making offenses to the holy name. We are inattentive. 10 types of offenses in the chanting are there. But let's say we are not committing aparadas, at least not intentionally. Then something else could be a problem. So fourth possibility is that our attitude is wrong. We think we can clean the mirror of our heart by our own strength. And if we think that, then again, we are cleaning it, but dust is coming again and again, and as soon as we clean it, more dust is there. So it's not the proper mood in which we can clean the mirror of the heart. Our attitude should be, I need mercy. I'm hopeless and destitute. We should have the mood as Narada Muni had in his previous lives when he achieved to purify his own heart to have a darshan of the Lord. So controlled senses and Shuddha Antakarana or purified mind, they are necessary to have a darshan of the Lord in one's heart, but they're not enough. They're just not enough. The mercy also has to be there. And that mercy will come only if our attitude is right. And what is that attitude? We can investigate in this case of Narada Muni. But for that, it's helpful to remember the life of Narada before he was an orphan boy. So it's a 2 lifetime past life regression. It's not only one. Narada Muni, he retells his experience from another lifetime in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 15th chapter, where he explains the Varnashrama to Maharaj Yudhishthir. And there he gives his history when he was a Gandharva on the Gandharva Loka. His name in that lifetime was Upa-Bharhana. So in that lifetime he was endowed with very beautiful body, which was very attractive to women of his Gandharva city. And he was always bewildered by lusty desires and enjoyed that women. So once it happened that he was invited by Prajapatis together with the other Gandharvas and Apsaras to the festival to glorify the Supreme Lord in the assembly of the demigods. So he went there in the company of beautiful women singing, and Prajapatis, they understood that he was offensive, and they cursed him to become a Shudra. And this is how he was born, as this Shudra boy in his next life, in which he achieved success. So what was his offense in that life as a Gandharva to be cursed? What was wrong in his attitude? First, he was surrounded by these apsaras, heavenly prostitutes, beautiful women, and naturally he was filled with lust. And when somebody's heart he was also intoxicated by his own beauty. Gandharva body is very beautiful. We cannot even imagine how beautiful it is. So if somebody is intoxicated with his own beauty and opulences, he cannot glorify properly anybody, but to speak, glorify Supreme Lord. Kunti Devi in the first canto, she mentions Jarma Ishwarya Shuta Shribir Hedamana Madhapuman Naiva Hartuya Bidatum Vai Tvam Akinchana Gocharam. So she says, my Lord, your Lordship can easily be approached, but only by those who are materially exhausted. Kinchana Gochara. Because one who is on the path of material progress, trying to improve himself with the respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty, Jarma, Ishwarya, Shuddha, and Shri, he cannot address you sincerely with a sincere feeling. So somebody who is very proud of his own opulences, either birth, high birth, either knowledge and education, either beauty, either money that he has, even when he chants the Lord's holy name, his heart is still filled with the pride and self-satisfaction. And then that utterance of the holy name remains without power. He is not able to call the Lord with a sincere feeling, and then consequently the Lord, he is not obliged. He doesn't feel obliged to respond to such a calling, because such person, he relies on his own qualifications. And then he doesn't feel helpless. He depends on his own strength. And thus, he cannot take shelter of the Lord. So that was Narada's this Muni or Upabarhana's mindset in that lifetime. And to cure the disease, the Lord, in the next lifetime, He made him a homeless orphan who has no qualifications, no high birth, no opulence, no knowledge, nothing. Completely shelterless orphan. And in that condition, he had no other option, no other choice but to take the full shelter of the Lord. And then he was able, as that small orphan boy, to naturally call the Lord with a sincere feeling. Like a small child. And he was a small child, actually. And then immediately, that chanting, that calling, attracted the attention of all merciful Lord. Like when Draupadi, she was in danger of being disrobed by Kauravas, and in distress and humiliated, she felt that she had no other shelter than Krishna, and she cried out in great distress, "Hey Govinda, hey Krishna," and Krishna, he felt obliged, and immediately he supplied that sari around her to protect her. So it's that sincere calling. This is what puts Lord in the depth. And he himself says that indebtedness towards Draupadi is increasing in his heart day after day. So as Upabahana, Narada, he not only had a wrong attitude of enjoyer, filled with the self-pride in his own capabilities and beauty and beautiful voice, but he also missed to glorify the Lord. Instead, he glorified the demigods first, although they call him to glorify Krishna. But even that glorification of the demigods, it was not real glorification of demigods, it was more or less glorification of himself. Because if somebody is intoxicated and proud, he just, whatever he says and does, although it might look like glorification, somebody else, is actually glorification of himself. Because he wanted everybody to notice how great singer he is, and how beautiful he is, and to attract those women who were around him. So basically he was stealing the spotlight from the Lord. And this is our problem in material world. We steal the spotlight from the Lord and put the spotlight on ourselves. We want to be in the center of attention. And this happens when we are intoxicated. We are with our opulences, whether it's birth, education, beauty, money, power, or whatever it is. So that's why Krishna, he takes these things away from devotees as the obstacle. And that's why he took it from Upabarhana or Narada Muni, and he became a homeless orphan. And in that life, as a homeless orphan, he was able to completely surrender, take full shelter of the Lord, and to call the Lord with the sincere feelings. So once we abandon our pride and take humble position and put the Lord and his devotees in the center, we will be able to call the Lord with such sincere feelings and affection. And in this way, our heart will quickly become pure and attract the Lord, who will come to our heart and take a seat there. And then we will also have a darshan of the Lord in the heart. So in conclusion, to achieve success in our practice and have a darshan of the Lord as Narada, we need two things. First, we need sincere effort to purify our heart and mind, to purify our antakarana, subtle body. And the second thing, we need the mercy of the Lord and his devotees. And that mercy will come when we discard our pride and our reliance on our own abilities and take full shelter of the Lord in the mood of homeless orphan, as Narada did in his previous life. Okay, I think I'll stop here if you have any comments or questions. You need a mic? Is there?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Dandavat, very nice class.
Thank you.
Prabhu, what I observed from in the Bhagavatam, Narada Muni is birthed in three different ways. At one way, it has been delineated that Narada Muni in his earlier life, he served some devotees and ate remnants of them. Where Narada Muni is the son of Brahma, state in Krishna consciousness, is the disciplic succession. In another context, it is telling that Narada Muni is after Brahma in the disciplic succession. But one context is in the previous life, he is just born by a maid servant.
Yeah, we have 3 lifetimes in succession here. First one was as Gandharva Upabarhan on Gandharva Loka. After that lifetime, he was cursed to become a son of a maid servant. This was second lifetime, in which he practiced. First, he got the mercy of Bhaktivedantas, and then he practiced, and he had a darshan of the Lord. And in the third lifetime, he was born as son of Brahma, Narada Muni, in his present eternal spiritual body. Is it clear?
But at this another way, another context also, it has been mentioned that along with Brahma, Narada Muni is also direct incarnation from Krishna Bhagavan, Lord Krishna, Supreme Personal Godhead.
In Narada Muni, he is mentioned as there are 2 types of siddhas, sadhana siddha and nitya siddha. So sadhana siddha, those who achieve perfection through the process of sadhana, and nitya siddhas, those who are eternally perfect. They don't need to practice any sadhana, they are eternally perfect. So Narada Muni is a mixed siddha. At the same time, he is a perfect partly because of eternal perfection, partly because of sadhana. So he is a mixed sadhana siddha and nitya siddha. This is what Acharya says about Narada Muni. So this part of him practicing sadhana is to teach us how, in the same way, we can achieve perfection by practicing sadhana as he did. And these lifetimes of Narada Muni, these 3 lifetimes, or 2 previous lifetimes, they illustrate what was the problem that he had and how, with the help of the Lord, he overcame these problems and became what he is now in his eternal form as Narada Muni. Is this? Is there anything else? Yes, Prabhu? Here's the mic.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you very much for the class. You were saying how even after so many years of chanting, like we don't get the taste, we don't see the Lord, and the reasons are like we might be committing offenses. But we have the process, and you gave the example of Narada Muni, how it worked for him. He was a Gandharva, but then he was cursed to become a son of a maidservant. But somehow he got the mercy in that lifetime, though he was offensive in his previous lifetime.
Yeah.
But we are all here now, and we are practicing. And I mean, you said, attitude, it all boils down to attitude, correct? Like how we can be successful in spiritual life. So how do we start doing things right that the process actually gives us the maximum benefit? How do we get into the right attitude so we become successful and then not worry about committing offenses, not be in the situation where you chant for years and decades but still remain almost the same?
Yeah, how to have a right attitude? Very good question, thank you. We have to understand with our intelligence, philosophically, to understand how precarious our present situation is. Probably many of us had experienced how previous 2020 year was very difficult for everybody, And maybe it could be helpful to understand that we can die at any time. And that nothing else except of Krishna can help us at that moment. As long as we are in a comfortable situation, as long as we feel some security, we don't have really impetus, motivation to take shelter of the Lord. And we depend on our comfortable, secure situation, our bank account, or whatever else we might have. So if we can understand that all these things, they can be gone in 1 second, and then no one else will be there to help us except Krishna, that can help us to have the right attitude. But if we are not able to do this, but still we are sincere, Krishna, he might help us. Like he helped Narada. He was cursed and he lost everything, all opulence, bodily beauty, high position, high birth. He lost everything. And then he was forced to take shelter of the Lord because he was a homeless orphan. He had no other shelter. So this is another possibility. But I guess we are all a little bit scared of this possibility of Krishna putting us in such a dangerous and precarious situation. So better we do it voluntarily before Krishna does that. Better we understand philosophically that all these things, they cannot save us. That Janma, Aishwarya, Shruta and Shri, and whatever else we have, that cannot help us. And stop taking shelter in them. So if we intellectually understand these things and remind ourselves day after day, and then very seriously practice our sadhana, especially our chanting, then it's possible to purify the heart. It's possible. But of course we have to be very careful not to commit offenses to any living entity. If we speak about committing offenses towards the Vaishnavas, it's just not worth, because it can stop us for a few lifetimes. Is this okay? Okay, if there are no other... Yes, Prabhu. Yes. Oh, Mike, okay.
Hare Krishna, somebody is asking, I don't have the name unfortunately. The question is, how do Mayavadi gets liberation? Because they don't have they are arrogant and they are pride. They have a lot of pride, so they are not humble. So how do they got the liberation?
Yeah, it is mentioned that practicing impersonal process for self-realization, practicing jnana and yoga, cannot give liberation unless at least little bhakti is mixed with it. Jnana and karma have to be mixed with at least some portion of bhakti in order to give liberation. But of course that liberation is not the same as the liberation that devotees achieve. Merging the impersonal Brahman or Sayujya Mukti is not the same as attaining the same form of the Lord, Sarupya Mukti, or living the same planet with the Lord and other types of Vaishnava liberation. So, yeah, impersonalists, they also have to be cleansed. But still, yeah, their attitude is not proper as long as they do not understand that they have to engage in devotional service of the Lord. So, 4 Kumaras are a good example of impersonalists who are completely pure, who realize their own self, who realize that they are the soul. They were not identified with the body. But when they came in touch with the Tulsi Devi, which is pure devotee, they became attracted. And Shukadeva Goswami, in the same way, he became attracted to the Lord's qualities, and they became devotees. So those impersonalists who are not offensive, who are pure, they achieve liberation with addition of little bhakti. Just on the strength of the impersonal process, they cannot. Yeah, I think that's it. I wanted to say something else. Can't remember right now. Yeah, yes. This is like Krishna's enemies, like Shishupal. He was killed by the Lord, and you can say, yeah, he didn't have a right attitude. He had the attitude of hate, but still, because his mind was completely absorbed in Krishna, this absorption purified his heart. It purified his heart from all arrogance, pride. And at the moment when the Krishna sent his Sudarshan and killed him, even the remaining portions of material contamination were removed. And at that moment, he became completely pure. And he was reinstated in his original position. And he was liberated. Not only merging, but also being reinstated to Vaikuntha as Jai, the Lord's gatekeeper, the Vaikuntha. Yeah, Kamsa. All demons killed by the Lord, they are eventually purified. And all improper attitudes, they're just removed by Lord's mercy. So it's not that somebody is going back to the spiritual world having a wrong attitude. He might have it before he goes there, but it has to be removed in order to go back. And in case of Krishna's enemies, it's removed by the Lord himself. His killing removes the anartha souls. Yes, Prabhu. Just 1 second.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Just as a follow-up inquiry kind of thing, is there any example of a Mayavadi achieving liberation mentioned in either Srimad Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Charitamrita? Truly Mayavadi, like who think that Krishna's activity and his body is like a vikar of Maya, right? Like that.
No, those who are offensive towards the Lord, they cannot achieve liberation. It's not possible. They have to be purified from that offensiveness in order to achieve the liberation. Only Brahmavadis, so, those who are not offensive, they can achieve liberation.
But Mayavadis don't actually attain liberation, right?
No, Mayavadis as Mayavadis. Only if they are converted and become either Brahmavadis or devotees, then they can achieve liberation. And this is a good point. Thank you for pointing out that. Okay, I think we'll stop here. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.